Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H event space. You are tuned into another edition of Leica Stories. Today, it's a pleasure being in conversation with Randy Blythe. Randy, welcome to the program.
Hey, how you doing, Derek?
Doing wonderful. Yourself?
I'm doing well, man.
Awesome. It's great to have you on, man. Huge fan. You're just multi-talented, as we talked about in the green room there. And books coming out. It's got a little bit going into the photography there, but really, I mean, I want to start just there talking about the book. This is your second book. This one for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can put it into your words better than I can, but this book was just it was like an awakening. It was like you just really tapping into who you are and what makes you you. It really just seemed like there was a lot of themes of self and self versus others and being selfless and learning to it was almost like I was in therapy, man. Like I'm reading it and I'm like, this is helping me tap in. And I'm sitting there, I had to stop and be like, yeah, you know what? How can I apply this to my life? There was a lot in there. So now to hear it in your words, what was the driving force behind the book and what is the book to you?
Well, the book is called Just Beyond the Light, and it comes out February 18th via Grand Central Publishing, which is a division of Hachette. And the main theme of the book, my first book, the main theme was personal accountability, is about some legal problems I had that I went through that some people are probably familiar with. But the second book is about perspective as far as I can tell after writing it, because I didn't have a very clear plan when I started writing it. It's about looking for outside perspectives from people or experiences I've had in order to uh, have me course correct and not make so many of the stupid mistakes I've made over the years. And I think for me, the only way I've ever been able to shift my perspective to a more balanced perspective is listening to people who have experienced things and come out on the other side of it a better person. So that's what I was trying to do, you know. And there is a lot of self-searching in it, because it is a, you know, I don't know if you would describe the book as a memoir, but it's a collection maybe of essays or something. And I'm writing about my experiences that I've had with other people or just in life. Um, and so I'm questioning myself, and I was questioning myself as I was writing the book. I knew I wanted to write about a couple of things, but everything else was a mystery. So is a lot of self-questioning. And I'm glad you said that, because that's something I really want for the reader. Hopefully that's the main point, is to think about their own perspective on life and to ask themselves about their own perspective and how they can change it for the better, you know?
Yeah, perspective is a great word, and that's exactly how I saw it. Is my perspective as a reader looking at it, and I think what struck me most is it's so real, it's so raw. It's not some suit sitting there behind, all their diplomas and saying, "Well, you need to do this and you need to do this." It's I did this and I learned from it. And maybe I didn't learn from it the first 5 times, but
Yes.
I eventually learned. It's like it was a lot of just it was real, man. And it was just like, look, I'm not proud of it, but I did it. And F it.
Yeah,
That's the way life goes.
yeah, it is, you know, and nobody, as far as I know, has ever lived a perfect life, at least no one that I've met. Um, and God knows I haven't. Uh, but that doesn't mean I need to sit here and castigate myself and flagellate myself and crucify myself forever. Um, I need to learn from these experiences and hopefully become a better person. If I just sit there and, oh, you're horrible, and beat the crap out of yourself, it's really just the other side of the egomaniacal, like narcissism coin, really. Because if I'm just sitting there thinking I'm just the worst person in the world because I did something wrong, um, then I'm still just thinking about one person, myself. And I think as I grow older, my life goes a lot smoother the less I think about me, you know? When I try and reach out and think about other people, my life tends to go a lot smoother. If I'm stuck here up in my head, it's no good. My head's a bad neighborhood. I should never go up there without adult supervision.
I can sympathize with that, and it's funny you took the direction that you just did, because that was one of the things that jumped out to me. When I first got the copy and started reading through everything, I'm just flipping through. I'm like, let me just see some some place to just jump in. I just kind of want to dive into the middle somewhere,
Mhm.
and it was exactly a part about that. It was meeting a fan, and it was a fan who had been through a lot of life struggles, and it was like you're sitting there and you're like you're questioning things and how do I act and what do I do and what do I say, and you're
Right.
like, dude, what am I doing? Like, I'm everything's about me, 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 and I'm
Yes,
like,
that's the first chapter of the book, and it's a story that it's called each chapter in the book is a song title.
mm,
From a band that I like, a song that I like, except for the first one because it's a Lamb of God song, my band, and it's a song called The Duke. And this was publicized at the time the song came out because I'd met a young man at a gig in Phoenix, Arizona, and he had been diagnosed with leukemia. And I met him after the show and talked to him about it, and I wished him luck, and I split. And, I'm like, oh, he was a really nice guy. His name was Wayne Ford. I hope he makes it. 5 years go by, and then his friend emails my publicist and it's like, I don't know if you remember meeting this guy, Wayne Ford, 5 years ago in Phoenix, but he's not going to make it. He
mm,
fought this leukemia for as long as he can. And would you be willing to get the band guys together to talk to him? And I was like, unfortunately, that's not possible because they're all in California recording and I'm in Virginia. But I will call him, and I developed a friendship with this young man during the last couple of days of his life, mostly just by talking on the phone and texting pretty often. And the way he handled his own mortality, because he had accepted that he was going to die at age 33, was, for lack of a better word, very inspiring to me. Because we all want to think that when we die, we're gonna die with some calm, a stoic demeanor, and I've seen that happen in older people because they're ready to go. They've lived a full life. This guy was 33 and he checked out pretty well. But the part you're talking about is before I talked to him for the first time. I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to say to this guy? I'm a singer in a heavy metal band. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a grief counselor. What if I say something that makes his cancer worse? What if I insult him? What about, what if I do this and this and that? And I realize I'm just thinking about me. I'm really just thinking about me and my worries and me not wanting to look bad or inefficient when all I had to do was the guy who wanted to talk to me is just like be a normal human being and talk to him openly and honestly. And that's what happened, you know?
mm. So deep, man. It's like you look at that and it really just humanizes the whole situation. It strips away all the lights. It strips away any visibility and notoriety and all that, and it's just like a human response, like at the
Yeah.
core.
Yeah. And I think, since then, since that young man, I've gotten to know a couple of people who are dying. Um, one through an organization I work with called Living the Dream. I met another young man last year, actually in Vegas, named Louis Fortinelli, and he was terminal with cancer. He had uh, gotten osteosarcoma and had to have one of his legs chopped off. And this foundation brought him out to see us 2 weeks after he had had his leg amputated,
Oh wow.
right? Because it had been eaten by cancer. He's a tough dude. He knew he was going to die, but he's like, I'm going to go see Lamb of God,
That's awesome.
because this wonderful foundation I work with, Living the Dream, they bring people out to meet their artists, young people with life-threatening diseases or terminal diseases. And so I got to know him and kept in touch with him until he died as well. And the same thing that I thought I knew sort of intuitively was that if you're talking to someone who is dying, it wasn't my job to like be the clown, be the front man, tell some tour stories, make them feel better. It's my job to listen and just be a human being,
Mm.
and yes, they know me because of my art, whether it be my music, my writing, or my photography. They know me because of that, but that it's not my job to be a musician, a writer, or a photographer. When you talk to someone who's dying, that strips all that crap away. Like as you said, it really does. It takes it away. You're down to the root. It's to be a human being and to listen to these people. So for me, without beating them over the head, like, how are you feeling, dude? I know you're dying. I would say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And listen. Instead of like when I talk to you, I'll see you on the street. I'll be like, "How you doing, man? What's up?" And that's a sort of like an automatic sort of like question. And you don't, I'm not really asking you, how are you feeling, man? Or what is exactly going on in your life. When you talk to someone who's dying, that's important. That's really important. And I think people who are coming to the end of their life, they want to be heard. They just want to be heard. I know I would, I think. So my job is just to be present and be a human being and give these people some time, because what they are giving me, and that's the other thing, is like I'm getting. I realize for these fans that I've met and I'm sure will meet, this is really cool. They get to meet the singer of their favorite band or whatever, or and that's really neat. But what they're giving me is something far more precious when you look at it, because this person is dying, and the only thing they have left is time, and it is
Mm.
a finite small amount, and they are giving you a piece of the only thing they have left. And when you realize that, it's quite profound. It forces you to be present.
Totally. And I think that's a great kind of segue into the photography thing, because what do photos do? They preserve time.
Yes.
And, the more we get into it, the older we get, man, we're getting up to the age where it's like people start dropping from your lives, and people that you haven't
Oh,
seen in years. It's like, oh wow, I didn't even realize this person passed away. Or you start hearing about it more and more. And what do we have left? We have videos, we have photos, we have these memories. And I think that's something that, as I've gotten older, I've really started to appreciate the photos I have of people, and start to say, do I have enough of my parents? Like, I go and see my parents, but I'm like, do I ever just stop and say, I want a really nice photo of you to remember? Or, even through the hard moments when you do start losing people to sickness, it's one of those things I've always struggled with. Well, I don't want to shove a camera up in somebody's face when they're sitting there struggling, or they're hooked up to tubes and machines. But then that person passes, and you wish you had every single bit of them to remember. Is that something that has resonated with you in kind of, your journey with photography mixed with your journey with searching for yourself and finding yourself?
yes, absolutely. And it's something I think about. Um, you know, I'm going to be 54 next month, right? And I came to photography relatively late. I came to photography right around the time I got sober, at age 39. And I'm a musician, but I'm also a big music fan. So I've been going to shows, mostly like punk rock, hardcore shows, since I was a kid, since I was a teenager. And in the 80s, not everybody had a cell phone, not everybody had a camera, but there was normally one or two those weird people, at the shows who had a camera. And these are film cameras because digital didn't exist then. Now everybody has one. And you look at these photos, and this is strictly from my era, coming from about the mid 80s on, of these shows. And I've seen photos of shows that I was at from then. And I'm like, thank God for the photographers, who preserve this cultural moment, this moment in time. Because I am a sort of a part of a subculture, and those those one or two weird people with the camera, they are cultural historians. Very important, for me at least, coming up in that sort of underground scene. And that transfers also to every now and then, now because we do have the internet, someone I haven't talked to in forever will send me a picture, that they took even with one of those disposable cameras from seventh grade. And I'm like, oh my God. I think young people today are so used to having every single thing documented from the second they come out before, everybody's
They
getting
don't
pregnancy.
appreciate that.
Yeah, they don't appreciate it. For me, I'm like, I see a picture of me in fifth grade if someone will have that. And I've been reconnecting recently with some childhood friends of mine through my Substack writing. And I'm just like looking at these pictures from like fourth or fifth grade. I'm like, that's awesome. God, you were an ugly little kid. But it's super neat. And so, in a long roundabout way, also, yes, particularly the older people in my life, I've been wanting to take photos of them more often, or people I don't see very often. It's, um, it's, it's something I want. I want this picture of this person because I don't know if I'll see them again, or when the next time I will see them will be.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, and it's something that like we said, the further you go along, the further you get away from a moment. That's one of the cool things to me about photography is it's one of the few things in life that appreciates with time. The more we get away from a moment, the more we cherish it, the more value it holds. It's like you look back at those photos from fifth grade, and you hate them at the time. It's like I think about how many photos I probably threw out that I found my mother had because I'm like, as a kid looking at photos, I'm like, damn, I want these to ever see the light of
Yeah,
day. And now
nobody
I'm like, man, I would kill for those embarrassing
nobody
photos
needs to
now.
see Derek in his messed up clothes with his braces or whatever.
Hand me downs all day,
Oh,
man.
dude, me too. I grew up in them. Grew up in them. My cousin's clothes.
That's something that I don't think that anybody ever again will experience. Now it's like, man, God forbid my kids don't have the nicest stuff. Well, we're not going to suffer. You're going to get the nicest stuff. It's like, man,
Yeah.
I think
Oh, no,
we
no, no,
passed
no,
down. It was
no.
like I was one of eight kids. We had one. You look through the old family album. It's like, oh, I've seen that shirt six times
So,
already on
yes,
six different
exactly. Because
people.
I'm the oldest of four. By the time my third younger brother came along, I was an adult way out. My dad had remarried or whatever. But my other two brothers, my kid brothers, are a little bit closer in age to me. So I didn't have anybody older than me. But I do not come from money. So we would get my cousin's old clothes, and then I would wear them. And then my younger brother would wear them. And then the other one would wear them. And they were out of style, whatever that means. But by the time they hit me, by the time my youngest brother got them, it's like good grief. What are you, an antique collector or something?
I know that struggle. I want to go back to you finding photography.
Yes.
I was shocked that I was shocked how you came across photography, and it's like because I'm like in a band, it's got to be around like photographers constantly and music videos and that whole world. I'm like in a lot of people, it's like that's how it starts. You're around the process, you get in.
Right.
I thought it was kind of cool how you kind of just like it was like an accidental like look
It was
down and
it was totally accidental because in a sense it does come from the music.
mhm.
And I was around a lot of photographers. And when I first started shooting, I was very lucky in that I had access to a lot of really good professional photographers that I'd worked with over the years, or they're always at shows. And I'm like, I got this camera. And they're like, oh, let me show you, how to the rule of thirds or whatever, basic things, basic compositional things. Um, but the way it came about is I was on tour and I was in Australia and I had really gotten sick of the internet, which has only gotten worse over the years. But I decided that I was going to unplug from the internet for a year and I was going to write a book about it because I wasn't a published author yet, but I've always wanted to write. So I'm like, I'm going to unplug from the internet from a year and write this caustic, judgmental tome about how much better my life was without a smartphone or whatever, right? And I'm sitting on a plane next to my friend Jamie Josta, who sings for a band called Hatebreed, pretty well-known hardcore band. And I give him the whole spiel, the internet sucks. I'm gonna write a book about this. He goes, no, dude, we gotta film it. You gotta make a documentary. It's gonna be way better. And I'm like, no, I want to write. He's like, no, trust me. He's a pretty smart guy. So I'm like, okay, cool. I need to get a camera to get some B-reel footage with. Never mind that I had zero plan for A-reel footage whatsoever. But I called a friend of mine who's a documentarian from Philadelphia named Don Argett, who we had worked with. And I said, Don, without breaking the bank, can you recommend me a cool camera to get some B-reel footage for this documentary idea I have? And he's like, yeah, you can get one like the one we use, which is I think it was a Canon 60D, I believe it was a prosumer type model. So I
Mhm.
got that with the kit lens, um, which of course was a mistake. I didn't get a full frame camera from the start, and then you know, um, I'm filming I'm filming some interviews for this documentary I'm doing, and I did interview a couple of people about technology in their lives, but really mostly what I'm doing is filming skateboarding, me and my friends. And then one day I'm getting ready to go out and go film my buddy skateboarding, and I noticed my reflection in the chromed lid of this French press camera sitting, I mean, a French press maker, coffee maker, not a camera, sitting on my stove. And I'm like, whoa, that looks kind of weird, like a Beastie Boys video or whatever, kind of fisheye. So I had the camera in my hand and I'm like, let me try this thing for what it's actually meant to be used for. Let's try and take a picture. So I put it on dummy mode, full automatic, and I focused it, automatically on the lid of the French press maker and got a sort of nice leading line at the top and down to the bottom. I'm like, that looks kind of cool. And I took a picture and then it immediately popped up on the back of the camera on the view screen. And I looked at it and I'm like, I'm a genius. I'm a genius. This is magnificent. Which it was a photo a seventh grader could have taken, but immediately the bug hit me immediately. And I'm
Mm.
like, this is so cool because for years, right, here's the other thing. I would walk around and see things. And I know now that I was seeing things with the photographer's eye. I would see the way light looked at a certain time of the day coming through trees, or I would notice shadows and contrast and all that stuff. And I would always think, man, that is so neat looking. I wish I had some sort of magic device in my brain that could capture this so I could show other people how cool I think this is. That would be really neat if they made something like that, right? Never coming to the obvious deduction that they make cameras, and that's what it is. So once I got this camera, I just started shooting on full automatic, just spraying and praying everything. And trying to look at it and understand what had happened when I saw a good picture. Like what makes this good? What makes this better than the other 400 I took, um, with the zero forethought? And I started thinking, well, I really enjoy this. I need to learn a little bit more about it. And that's when I started talking to photographers, mostly music photographers who
Mhm.
were willing to teach me some things. And that's where and then I started delving into the history of photography and learning about other photographers. And the one that really immediately I was like, this is awesome was Henri Cartier-Bresson, who one of the founders of Magnum,
Legend.
and
Okay.
a Leica M shooter. And I was like looking at all his photos. I'm like, these look so cool. These look so magic. What type of camera did he use? It's a Leica M. So I looked at Leica M's and I'm like, whoa, because they're not cheap. And I contacted another musician I know who could afford these things, Nikki Six from Motley Crue. I knew he shot with those,
Shoots
and
like us, yeah.
yeah, he's like telling me about it, and he's like, "Look, dude, try and rent an M before you haul off and just spend the money on it because they're not cheap, and it's a totally different process." Um, so I live in Richmond, Virginia. There's nowhere to rent an M. But luckily, I know a photographer in Los Angeles, Andrew Stewart, who's a pretty well-known Leica music guy. And I was going out there. I can't remember where I was going out there, but I was going to shoot some photos with my buddy Scott Uchida, who's a music photographer. He's like, "Come down to this studio and we'll shoot." And and Duff McKagan came down from Guns N' Roses, and we shot photos of him. And my buddy Andrew Stewart's like, I'll come by and you can try this M. And I'm like, killer. So he comes by and brings his M, I believe it's an M240. And I'm shooting Duff McKagan in, and then Duff is like, let me call Slash, see if he'll come down. So he calls Slash from Guns N' Roses. So now I've got half in Guns N' Roses. And my first, I had my own SD card. I uh, put in Andrew's M. The first Leica photos I took with an M were a Slash and Duff McKagan. It's kind of,
Who has that? Who can say that?
yeah, I'm very lucky, right? It's not like, oh, I'll just call Slash and he'll come over and I'll take
Yeah.
his photos.
I'm over
And
here
so,
taking pictures of flowers in the backyard and
yeah, so I learned during that, I'm like learning the sort of very specific uh, technique of shooting a rangefinder, shooting in manual. I already knew how to control the exposure triangle at that time. But then, we shot Duff and then shot Slash and just had a great time. They're both great guys. I'm friends with both of them now. But uh, I got I left and I went back to my computer and I put the SD card in and downloaded the pictures. And then I remember very specifically looking at this first picture of Slash I took and like made it
you're like
enlarge.
zooming.
And I'm like, oh my God, like you can see inside his pores. It's just so crisp. And I'm like, that's amazing. I have to get one of these things. So I saved up and bought a M. Uh, I did some side gigs actually, some recording stuff, was hustling so I could get this camera, and I haven't looked back since. That's primarily what I shoot with. That being said, buying a Leica M is not going to make you a good photographer, because if you if you don't if you don't shoot, if you don't have an eye, if you aren't at least trying
Yeah.
purposely to do things, anyone with a cell phone and who has an eye is going to take a better picture of you than with a $30,000 vintage M3 or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's like you were walking around with the photographer's eye. You just didn't have a camera, and a camera wasn't, if you're not a photographer, it's like, I think we forget, and especially the younger generation doesn't even know that photography wasn't really a thing prior to maybe 15, maybe that's even generous, maybe 10 years ago. It's like photography was one of those things, like you said, like maybe you knew somebody who brought a camera around. It's like we used to, fart around with disposable cameras here and there. And it's like I had to wait for my mother to go drop it off at the little, 1 hour shack
Mhm.
in the parking lot when she went grocery shopping. And you had to wait to get your film back and this and that. And it was like, you didn't really, if you saw stuff that was cool, you didn't think, oh, I'm going to take a picture of that. Now it's second nature. Now photography is so big. But I think, one of the themes that I locked on with you just talking about art in general, like there's artists and there's people who aren't artists. And there's
Yeah.
there's just like art, not everybody's an artist. And
No.
and I think we love to be spin everything, so positive, like, oh, everybody can be an artist. Like, no, not everybody is an eye. You can work on
No.
stuff. And I think it's the passion. You talk about with music particularly. It's like a musician is they don't want to make, like, they need to make music. You need
Yes.
to create this. You have this feel like I'm burning inside. I have to get it out.
Yeah. That's it. And I'm not going to sit here and turn into a grumpy old man and be like, these kids today, they don't know what they're doing and things were way better back then. But there has been a shift. And I think a big, I
Yeah.
write about this in the book. There's a big misunderstanding of the life of the artist, what art is, what the purpose of doing this all is. Because if you look at with music, if you look at the sort of the way kids, I think a lot of them perceive how you become a successful musician, it's not from going on America's Got Talent. It's not from going viral on YouTube. Yes, that happens to one or two people.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody else who you see who has made a career, whether it be in music, writing, photography, dance, sculpture, painting, whatever, has done it because they have continually applied themselves to the creative process, which is oftentimes very boring and or painful. So
Yeah.
there has been a shift there's a cultural shift, I think, in and I've noticed it in the younger fans, like in music, when we started gaining a little notoriety and toured quite a bit with my band. Younger fans would come up to us and they would ask me a question. They're like, "What advice do you have for a younger band? And we want to go on tour. We want to do what you do." And I'd say, "Okay, look, number one, practice, practice, practice. Number two, play in front of anyone, anywhere, at any time you can, as much as possible. That is how you're going to learn your chops. You can only do it by doing it in front of other people." And they would say, How did you travel? What did you rent a van?" I'm like, "We all scraped our money together and bought a van and booked the tours ourselves and played in basements and punk rock squats." And they're asking these very nuts and bolts questions. And I'm explaining this process to them. And I can see them taking notes. Okay, that's how they did it. I'm learning. And that's because that's what I did. I asked older musicians. Now, and this is unbelievably a fairly common question from younger people, they come up to me and they're like, "I'm thinking about starting a band. Uh, what advice can you give me so that I'll be successful in the music industry?" And and I'm like, "None. None. You go to get a job as an accountant or a mechanic or something where you are guaranteed to at least have some modicum of success monetarily, because music isn't it. Or we just started a band and like, how do we get to go on tour with Metallica? You don't. If it just doesn't happen. You don't hatch out of a rock star egg. You apply yourself again and again and again and again. And there is no beyond the extreme outliers, which I think are now being held up as a paradigm of the normal path. Like, I'm going to win some sort of reality contest or make a viral video and then I'm going to be famous. Beyond those extreme outliers, the only way to succeed or get good at anything is to to suck at it. In fact, yeah, working at it means you suck at it. And God knows I have taken a million bad photos. I've written a million bad lyrics. I've sang horrible many, many, many times. You do it again and again and again and again until you get better at it. And I think in order to do that, to pursue a career in the arts and to do all these things that have no guaranteed at all monetary compensation down the road, it's not guaranteed. You have to love it. You have to love it. So when I started writing when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking about music at all. I mean, about money at all. When I joined my band, I just wanted to play music. When I started shooting photos, I was like, this is really cool. I didn't think I was going to get to go to Germany to the like factory to see how they're made. None of that was in my mind whatsoever. What was in my mind is, I love this. I love this.
Mm.
This is killer. I'm engaged in something. And I'm through the artistic process, I think I'm learning about myself, you know? And with photos, that is continually, it's the truth. That truth is demonstrated to me again and again and again because I have a fairly instinctive eye. Sometimes I'll think about a photo I want to shoot, but most of the time it's something that catches my eye, you know? And so I'll shoot the photo and then I'll examine it later and why my eye was attracted to that, why I framed that in my mind as a photograph is only apparent to me later when I look at it. And so I'm learning about my mind state in the moment of the creation. And I think that's what art is like through looking at these things in the process of creation, we are learning about ourselves. It's a
Mm.
journey of self-discovery, not to sound too hippy dippy, but it really is.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It quite literally is a trip inside your brain to see how you view the world. And I
Yes.
think the whole like the embracing the process and wanting to get better, it's really just a matter of how do I accurately portray what I felt when I saw the photo or what I'm seeing? Because if you don't know how to work a camera, if you don't know the ins and outs, and you don't know the technical aspect, it doesn't help you as much when you say, okay, I have this cool scene here, but the camera's not going to do. I can't just push a button and it doesn't have feeling to it. I have to know, how do I evoke something out of it?
No, and that's the other thing, by the way. If anybody's not a photographer and you're looking at this, one of the I know you mean well, but like if you see a photographer with a camera and you walk up to them, you say, that camera takes great pictures. No, the camera doesn't. The camera is useless in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it, you know? The person behind the camera takes the great picture. The camera does not, you know? I think it's hilarious. And people think that if you acquire this certain model of whatever, it's going to make you a better photographer. It's not. Going out and just shooting. That's what's going to do it.
Especially a Leica M. Hand
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't know what they're doing an M, and you're
Well,
lost.
it's like handing someone who doesn't know how to drive a Ferrari.
Right.
They aren't going to go and win a race. They're going to wreck, you know? So I love shooting with an M, and I will go back and forth between the M and sometimes a Q.
Okay.
But
What's your everyday? Is the cue just what you grab like when you're just running around, or
no.
really?
The M11P with the 50 millimeter right now,
Oof.
or my M11 mono. That's what I grab, and I have in my bag right now the M11P because I want the monochrome eventually to have the content authorization chip in it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, is that the technology, the
It's
anti?
it's an anti, it's a verification.
Yeah.
And the Leica M11P is a chip created by Adobe so that every picture has embedded in the metadata. You can take that picture and take it to the site and check it to make sure it's not AI, and will show the raw file, and then it will show every step of its editing. It's incredible, you know, because there's so much AI photography. Get out of here, you know.
I was gonna
Um,
make this just the conversation about AI and selfies, and
do you want my head to explode? You know, no, but it's got that. I want the M11 to get that, which they will. But this is the first camera
Mhm.
with that, and I take that out the door. I would love to get the new Q with the 43 millimeter, because that's just super cool. It's close to a 50, and that'll be like the automatic grab and go will be the new Q3 with a 43 millimeter. But I haven't pulled the trigger on that. They're hard to find, and trying to save some money right now. But I love carrying the M. And it's just a different process for those who are unfamiliar. It's 100% manual, and that means no autofocus. Everything's like this. You look through it, and the shutter, everything. You set your ISO. It's 100% manual, and also I can use the lenses on my uh, M11s for my M6. I have a Franken M that I got from my friend Michael, who works for Leica, and the guy who was responsible for maintaining their analog M's for years was
Wow.
retiring. And I hit him up. I'm like, Michael, I want to buy a film in M, and they're expensive over here in Germany. They're much more common. So he's like, oh yeah, so we'll get someone to sell you one. So he gets the guy who works on the M's, the analog M's for Leica, and he's like, yeah, I have this one. It's an M6 body with possible an M for the dial, and it's like this Franken M, and only one of them exists, and I got it, you know. So, but I can use the lenses from my digital M's onto the analog M, and I believe I can use lenses that date back to the 50s, if not the late 40s, because they've never changed the bayonet. So it's for me it's just a wonderful system, and since there's no zoom, you have to move, and you have to move your body. You become engaged, particularly when you're shooting a human being. You become engaged with the subject. You're like there, moving with
Mhm.
them, not like far away. Like
It's like an
uh,
intimate. It's an intimate process.
yes, and it's funny because when I shoot portraits of people, generally with a 50, That's generally what I use is the Summilux 51.4. Uh, it, I can see in their face, even people that are used to having their pictures taken, they're like, whoa, because I'm
You're right there.
getting up in them. I'm not like way back here screwing with the zoom, and it takes them off a little bit, but I I like to talk to people if I'm shooting their picture. And I have a few things I'll talk to them and put them at ease, crack some jokes or whatever. And it's a intimate experience. And for me, I really love talking to people, particularly people if I don't know them. If I'm going to take their portrait, I enjoy the process and I enjoy talking to them and learning about their life. Makes the
Mhm.
photograph more meaningful for me.
Totally. What do you find yourself taking pictures of most now, and how has that changed since you first started? What was it when you first started? Where do you find it now?
I mean, God, eh, I think as I get older, and shoot more and more, I want to shoot people more and more and more and more. I still enjoy landscape. I still enjoy street scenes. I like street photography, and by when I say people, I mean I like to take portraits, um,
Mhm.
because there is that that exchange.
It's a connection.
Yeah, it's a
It's
connection.
like you're capturing a piece of somebody.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's just a special thing. I think that's really my favorite thing is when I see someone. I love old people. I love shooting pictures of old people. It's amazing. My girlfriend's a photographer too. She loves old people. It's best. And she gets away with it a little bit better than me because she's a lot prettier and female, and she can be like, "I want to take your picture." They're like, "Sure."
Everyone folds in.
Yeah,
Of
yeah, and then
course. What do you?
you
Where do I
got me,
stand?
this weird tattooed guy, and I'm like, I want to take your picture. I'm pretty good at talking to people though. But yeah, man, I love shooting old people because I just love the wisdom you see in their face, the lines in their face, everything. They earn that, and they all have stories. And if you can connect with someone, you're going to get that story, and that interests me, not just for photography, but for writing, and for
Mm.
music. Everything, it's all kind of connected. I just love people's stories. I'm very, very interested in humans. Individual human beings fascinate me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is connected to growth as a human. We grow up, we change, well, we hope we change, we hope we progress, and we hope we learn more. I wanted to ask you about that as an artist. I mean, especially with music.
Mhm.
You have people where it's like Randy from 20 years ago is different than Randy now.
Oh yes.
But we didn't even have to say that. Without
We
that
don't
goes
we
without
don't need to
saying.
talk about that's bad, Randy.
But you have to the fans, it's like, and I feel this as, there's like this parasocial, parasitic relationship sometimes that fans have where it's like, well, you can't change. You got to keep putting out the same music. It's like a band can't progress. If you were
Yeah.
hard when I started listening to you 25 years ago, you got to be hard into your 70s and this and that. So it's like you as an artist, I don't know if you want to take this as a musician, as a photographer, as an artist overall. How do you manage that change in just you as a person and you progressing and how you change and how your art changes as a reflection of you changing as a person, if that makes sense?
Right. Well, I think first and foremost, the thing is that look, I'm very grateful for our fans, right? They have provided me a life beyond my wildest dreams. I've been literally around the world several times. I've played on every continent except for Antarctica. Um, I'm very grateful to them, but they're not the reason why I make music, and they're not the reason why our band makes music. We make music for five dudes. So I have to think about, do we like this music? And there's a lot of it we don't. It'll get rejected and sorted through. I can't worry about, oh, the fans won't like this, or this will be too weird for them, or if we take this chance, they're going to be upset. Who cares? I'm not like, no offense, but I don't care. I am an artist for me. I didn't try and do this as a career. It just somehow turned into one. I would be making music if nobody listened to us. And eh, I'm approaching music that I'm making for everyone with that same intent. I would not, I'm not trying to make music that is harmful or art that is harmful to people. I do think about that. Um, but I make music and art that satisfies me. And I think that fans appreciate that in the end, because if you're changing to suit other people, they can smell it, particularly in like the underground sort of scene,
Yeah.
people, they want you to remain true to yourself. I think our fans respect that. So I just really don't think too much about what other people think.
I love that. I mean, look,
I can't. If I did, I would never leave the house.
well, then you lose the real fans who appreciate it's more about you, the person, you, the band, who you guys are. And it's like
Right.
you don't want the fair weather friends and the
No,
listeners
no,
who
no,
like,
no. You mentioned the parasocial relationship thing too, and that's a term that has come up that I've learned over the last couple of years that I think is very, I don't know, it's super interesting. I think it's only grown
oh
with the
yeah,
advent of the internet. It's always been there, but people love your art or your writing or your music, and then they, because of social media and all this stuff, they they feel as if they actually know you and develop this strange relationship, like they're making value judgments on you and how what you do, and it's nonsense.
yeah,
It's nonsense. You don't know anyone until you meet them, and I think that's one of the big problems with this technology, with social media and that expression of the internet technology, is people are confusing life as seen through a digital filter with real life. These highly curated presentations of someone's life are nonsense. It's fantasy. It doesn't matter how much money you have. And if you're always vacationing in Hawaii and doing yoga under some beautiful waterfall, you get food poisoning every now and then. Everybody does. And it's not pretty, right? But they never show you that. So you have these people have these strange parasocial relationships with people where they speak, and I've seen it in comment sections. It's really funny where people have spoken on behalf of friends of mine who are dead. And they're like, well, musicians I know who have dead, and they're like, well, he wouldn't approve of what they're doing with the music right now. He would not. And I'm like, how the hell do you know? You don't know this person. They're dead. B, you do not know them, right? You are not qualified to make any sort of judgment about what their ideas or views on anything are, because you do not know them. And you can only really know someone when you meet them in person. That being said, with me, I try not to put out any sort of, I don't know, false image of myself. I'm a pretty honest guy. So what you see is what you get. That's
yeah, I love that.
still you have to meet someone and know someone.
Totally. We're gonna get to some images while I'm getting
Yes,
that those
we
up on
are
the
in the photo
screen.
chat
We
here
are in a
after.
photo chat, man. It's like people are like, "Wait, are we gonna see this guy's work? What's up?" But I had to tell you while I'm pulling these images up. Funny story. I'm reading the book and my son's running around and he's in his ACDC phase, which is
Right?
just it's funny for me for look, I
How old
play
is
it
he?
obviously. He's 7, but you don't see
Yeah,
too many
he's back in
sevens.
black, baby.
Yeah, he's like running around. It's like I'm trying to read and it's like, man, reading's hard enough for me. And it's like
Right.
I'm trying to like stay focused and like read and I gotta soak this in. And he's like, Alexa, play TNT. And it's like I hear him in the background, I and I'm like, no, oh no, Alexa, cancel. See? It's sure gonna
Oh
So I'm trying, reading to keep telling him now's not the time. And it was right before I got to the Dave Brockie story from the Napalm Palm Death Show. And
Right.
it's like, dude, it was such a great moment overall. Cause like I said,
Hmm.
he's over here trying to play ACDC. Kid just
Hmm.
wants to rock out over here. And it was such a cool story. And again, the perspective, the reflection, there's something to learn from it. And it was just a funny story, man. Like it's like I could see it happening.
Right.
And it was like, it almost had like this like Happy Gilmore-esque, like Sandler, like, it's a long way to the top. And
That's right,
it
baby.
goes back to the chicks. And I'm like, it was
Yeah.
so great. And it's like, it's such a funny story. But
Yeah.
then the moment, like, when it sinks in, it's like, wow, that guy knew my name. Like, holy
Yeah.
shit, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had to tell you,
Intense.
it was just so funny. It was like this like three-dimensional. I'm like, no, I'm like 10 minutes before my son's over here trying to play
TNT.
ACDC. And then I come across the story and I'm like, and then that line, I'm like,
Syn-
too funny.
Synchronicity, dude.
That's it. That's it. Look, I told you I was gonna get it in there. So I was
Okay.
like, why not start with it? We gotta go right to this is your favorite image, right?
I think this is a favorite portrait of anyone I've ever taken. Um, and the story behind this is it happened, I believe, shortly. It was around the time of COVID, right? And I'm a surfer, and oftentimes my friends and I surf on the Outer Banks of North Carolina on Hatteras Island, which is a barrier island. You have to take a bridge over there or a boat, and it had been closed due to COVID because they didn't want anybody on there because they don't have much infrastructure. But they finally opened up. My buddies and I were going to go surf for the first time, and we were at this gas station on the way to Hatteras, and this woman right here sees us, and she's got this beat up old rusty metal gas can, and I guess she was getting gas for her lawnmower or something, and she's like, "Excuse me, can you take this off the top? It is stuck." And I'm like, "Absolutely." I walk over and take it off, and she is just smiling at me, and I'm like, "Can I take your picture?" And she's like, "Sure." And I'm like, "You just have such a cool look." And she had such a cool smile, just great energy. So I ran and I got a cue. It was the cue, is what I had with me. And took the camera out, and she immediately turned it on, right? She knew she looked cool, and she's got her pose is just right, her hair is just right, and her eyes lit up. And I shot like 3 frames, and they're all good, but this is my favorite one. I love her Capricorn shirt, and just she was so cool, and she was like super grateful that I took the top off the gas can for her. And she's like, "Thank you so much." I'm like, "It's not a problem. Can I take your photo? I'll trade, you know?" Um, and I wish I'd gotten her email or something, because I'd love to
Also,
email
you
this to her.
never also
Mm,
she's never seen the
I
image
don't
of the
know if she has or not. I
wow.
put it on social media, and
Uh-huh.
who knows. Um, but it came, the photo also came from, when I agreed to take the cap off of her gas can. I wasn't immediately thinking I need to take this woman's photo. That came as I was doing it. So it came out of helping someone. That photo did. It came out of helping someone out, and doing a good turn or whatever. And it provided me, I think, my favorite portrait I've ever taken. I just love it for some reason, everything about it.
I love that. No, it's a great portrait, and she does. She has a great look. Just there's something in her eyes and in her
Yes.
expression. But it's like you said, someone can have a great look, but if the moment's not there, especially as
Mhm.
you get further along, it's like, come on, man, you've seen a ton of cool looking people in your life. Not
Yeah.
everyone is worthy of a picture, but it's like when you have a moment like that, that's the kind of stuff that you want to capture. Is it's not just so
Yes.
much about the look; it's really about the moment.
She was honestly happy, and and I shoot very quickly. I'm not a guy who uh I've done several band shoots for bands. They love me because I'm like quick. I
That's
because
it.
I know how, if you, as you said, the moment will pass.
Yeah,
The moment will pass, and that was a really good moment.
love that. I love this.
Yeah, this is
I love it
on.
down there. I love it down there. It's
Yeah, yeah, they had a rough start to the year.
yeah.
New Orleans did. That was not on my bingo card. Wake up and call every single person I know in New Orleans to see if they're alive after the guy ran over people on Bourbon Street. But we were down there on tour, and I went walking through the quarter because it's a lovely place to take photos. And on this corner, and this was during the day, and it wasn't during tourist season, so it wasn't very crowded. But there was this bubble machine, just and I shot a bunch. I pulled the Henri Cartier-Bresson, where you post up and wait for the photo,
Mhm.
right? And he used to do that in Paris. So I saw these bubbles, and I'm like, something cool is going to happen, if I just sit here and wait. And I sat on the corner and shot people just coming through. And I noticed all the adults would just walk through. Some of them look really annoyed by the bubbles. And then some of them are just in a hurry, like some of them just walking straight through. They're busy, they're doing their adult thing. They're not paying attention to what's going on around them. or looking at their phones, like this guy over here, but near the horse carriage. They're not seeing everything that's going around. And this girl is walking home. She's a schoolgirl, um, to school uniform she's wearing, and she's got her frappuccino or whatever, and she stops and sees the bubbles and just stops in the middle of the street and is just like
Awesome.
playing with them, trying to catch them with her tongue. And I got 5 or 6 great shots of her. And she was not paying attention to me at all. But this is the one that really stood out to me. She's just fully in the moment, fully noticing how cool her surroundings are. And for me, that's what photography does for me. Even in places that are every day. It's a little bit harder when you're going to places you go to every day, but with a photographer's eye, you can notice new things about it and be immersed in your environment and notice aspects that maybe evaded you before. So that's what this girl was doing. She was just enjoying her life, unlike all the other adults.
Yeah, I love that, and that's what stuck out to me. I'm glad we were seeing it with the same set of eyes because it's like all the adults. It's just like, all right, let's go down the street, and
Yeah.
you got to stop and appreciate life every once in a while.
Smell the roses, taste the
That's
bubbles.
it.
So this was
I
at speaking
love
of
this.
seeing of Dave Brocky. This was at Guarbecue,
Oh no
which is
way.
a sort of festival that Guar used to have there from our hometown of Richmond, Virginia, once a year. And we were playing it this year. We've played a few. We were playing a few, and this is a band from New Orleans actually on stage called I Hate God, EYEHATEGOD, not I. So it's like this weird pun, but they're from New Orleans and they were playing, and they're friends of ours. And this is my guitar player Mark's daughter, Lorelei, and she was almost 6 years old then. Like a week later would be her sixth birthday. And she first came on tour with us when she was 2.5 years old. He got a bus for them, for his family, for a week just so he
That's
could see his
awesome.
daughter, because you got kids, you don't get to see them in this business, and you have to seize the time. So she is completely used to being on stage since an infant in front of thousands of people and very loud music. Of course, always with ear protection. But we're all watching this band, and they're just kicking butt and everybody's going crazy and they're incredibly loud and heavy. And she was just wandering around the stage looking at the bright colored tape on boxes and just being a little kid looking at stuff. This is her normal environment. Was not phased at all by all these people, where like adults, if you'll see them, if they ever get on side stage for the first time, they're like, whoa, there's 5,000 people out there, it's freaky. She wasn't worried at all. She was much much more interested in looking at the equipment and so forth. So I she's a teenager now, of course, lovely young lady, but I've known her since she was an infant, and this is her when she was 5. And I just thought it showed the sort of the dichotomy of the intensity of the adults and just this child who's just looking around, and then that's her normal.
I love that, and facing away from
Yeah.
everything else. It's like how many other people, like you said, the adults would walk on the stage, and it's like, wow, they
Oh
showed them on
shit, this is a
stage.
box of gear and stuff. She was digging in it, looking at like cool tape or whatever before then.
That's
She doesn't
awesome.
care. This is from the Standing Rock Reservation on Cannonball, North Dakota, from 2016. They are the Dakota Access Pipeline was constructing a oil pipeline that ran beneath the river that is the water supply for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and millions of other people. And this was on a protest that was happening on Thanksgiving Day, and I believe it was 2016. I was there. It was freezing cold. These people had built this bridge to go across here, and on the ridge line up at the top are a bunch of police and private security, some of which are from a private security firm called Tiger Swan. And there was a lot of violence at this place. I was out there for a few days bringing some supplies. I have a lot of connections in the Native community. They're just trying to protect their water supply. And these people had built a bridge across the river, the Cannonball River, and had gone across to pray because this land up here is a burial ground and they're digging through this burial ground. And there's private security up at the top. All those dudes have guns. And they
Wow.
were pointing down at us and yelling, "You need to disperse, you need to disperse." And people were yelling, "We're just here to pray." So I was behind this young woman. I was walking along and she could see she's throwing a peace sign and she's got a feather, a native lady. And they're up there out of range with these weapons. And there was definitely violence there. Not on that particular day, but all around that time, there was a lot of violence just because these people wanted to protect their water supply. And I just kind of, it shows the picture to me. The only things that are in focus are this woman's hands and the feathers, really, and it's peace and her reaching out to her conception of a higher power or the great spirit of God or whatever for help. Um, I
I
don't
love
know.
that.
It really just struck me, there's like, they're up there with guns and she's down here with a feather and a peace sign.
And that's such another cool thing about photography is that we have boots on the ground, we have voices all over where you don't just have to rely on journalists and photojournalists and news and all that stuff. It's like, no, everybody has a way to tell a story now, which I think is so cool, even if it is a phone. There's
Yeah.
such great work being done by the boots on the ground, that we it's so easy to get caught up in all the BS of social media, and I mean all the people that you want to take their phones away or their cameras, but
Right.
stuff like this, you look at stuff like this and it's like, this is how word spreads. This is how our generation tells their stories. This is how our generation starts movements, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think the key that you just said there is how things start. Uh, you know, information, photographs have the very real power to change history. There's the famous photograph was used on the cover of a Rage Against the Machine album, even of the monk immolating, sitting there in Southeast Asia, and he caught himself on fire in protest. And John F. Kennedy, I believe, was the one who they showed him this photo uh, as soon as it made the press lines or whatever, and he cursed, and it changed American policy in that particular area. The photographs have a real power to shape the course of history. They can be an impetus for actual action. I think that is the main thing to remember, though, especially in this era of social media, is sitting there. Outrage without action is just masturbation.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So
I
if
love
you're
that.
upset about something and, hitting, you know, like and making a "this is awful" comment, if you see something, even not necessarily something that upsets you with anger, but something that is sad and upsets you, like commenting on social media and hitting like and stuff because you see this moving photograph is not the same as taking action. If something upsets you, do something about it. These photographs provide an impetus for that, but they are not action itself. They're a picture of a moment in time when action was happening.
I love that. We'll get to one more picture here, Randy.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. What's going on here? Is this just a street grab or?
This is a street grab. We were playing at Madison Square Garden, I believe, or I know it was down the street from there. We played there a few times. No, we weren't playing at Madison Square Garden because I can see I'm shooting with a cue. And the first time I played Madison Square Garden, I did not own one then, and that was with Metallica. Anyway, regardless, this is down the street from Madison Square Garden, and uh, it is an unguarded moment with some fans. We were playing later that day in New York somewhere, and I'm walking by, and they see me, and they just got so excited. Um, and I was out doing the New York City street photography thing. I shoved it in the window and we had this moment of connection. They didn't come out, I didn't go in or anything, but it was so cool. They were so excited to see me, which eh, I still am continually surprised by because I'm, basically a restaurant worker from Virginia, and when people get that excited to see me, I'm like, whoa, they actually like me, but it was a great moment for me. This guy is so happy and he's like this big guy, like a little gorilla. He's totally stuck. It was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And it's a moment for me as an artist. It's a moment where I realize I can bring joy to people's lives. And that's stuff when I get up in my head or on my pity pot about, oh, my life, I don't want to do this or I'm tired or whatever. It's like, dude, you make people hop up and yell,
That's
and they're
awesome.
stoked. You got to be grateful for that. So these guys were great. They were just super happy. And I was happy I captured that.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you could, like you said, you could see it just looking in the guy on the left, his eyes. It's like he's got this, like, holy shit, no, is this real? Like he's
Yeah.
taking
And
a picture of us.
yeah, it was very quick too. It wasn't like they were like, we're going to pose. Like they were like, they saw me and I was already walking and shooting. They were like, I just caught him. It was a decisive moment, as Cartier-Bresson would say.
Ah, I love that, man. This was awesome. This was such a great conversation. The book is it February 18th?
February 18th, it comes out, and I will be doing a tour, a spoken word tour, starting on the 18th. There's going to be a New York bookstore event that will be announced soon. But after that, I go to Philly. I believe it's February 19th, and I'm doing a spoken word show. I'm going to talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours, God, depending on if I can restrain myself, and just tell a lot of stories that illustrate the themes that I'm writing about in the book. And it's going to be really funny. There'll be a Q&A after, and the price of ticket includes a copy of the book, and I will stick around and sign and take photos with everyone after. And if you want to know the dates for the book tour, you can go to randyblythe.net, RANDYBLYTHE.net, and tickets are available there. Or you can pre-order the link. I think you guys are going to throw a link up to the book.
Yeah, we'll drop a link. We'll drop randyblythe.net. Obviously, go give Randy a follow on Instagram. Check him out and keep up with him on there. It's not just selfies.
No,
It's not,
I
I
try
promise.
not to.
No, Randy, this is awesome, man. Look, I mean, you're incredibly talented, but you're a super intelligent, down to earth, just real cool dude. So we appreciate you for that. And just got such a great outlook and perspective. I mean, we started this thing on perspective. I guess we'll end it on perspective. Your
Yeah,
perspective on life is just awesome. It's always moving
trying,
forward, man.
trying, man. We don't have much of a choice, I don't believe.
Nah.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy. And of course, huge thank you to Leica for setting this up and hosting this wonderful
Big
event.
shout
And
out.
big shout out, big shout out. And to all of our viewers out there, thank you guys for tuning in. Another edition of the B&H Event Space now in the books. Catch y'all next time.
Peace.